Hello, my name is Dan Campbell. I'm a lawyer here in Wichita Falls, and my associate is Dean Godfrey, who is seated to my right. Dean, we're going to tell the folks about Aid and Attendance. It's a Veterans Administration program. This became the new law for what we call A&A, Aid and Attendance, became effective 2020 this year, right?
Right.
So tell the folks sort of a little snippet about what A&A involves.
So the Veterans Aid and Attendance benefit is a non-service based pension, which means it's not necessarily from your time during service, and it's not an injury-based pension. It's available to veterans, or in the event of a veteran that has passed away, their surviving spouse, with additional tax-free monthly income to assist them with elder law assistance, either in the home or in an assisted living facility.
Okay. And there are, 3 or 4 criteria that we have to examine to determine if the veteran may be eligible for aid and attendance. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, let's talk about the military service requirement, the time frame that a veteran must have served in order to be a potential candidate for A&A.
There are some service periods that the VA has laid out for us. For World War II, the period that the veteran had to serve in was December 7th, 1941 to December 31st of 1946. For the period the VA has laid out for the Korean conflict, it's June 27th, 1950 to January 31st, 1955. For the Vietnam era period, the veteran had to serve February 28th, 1961 to May 7th, 1975. And for the Gulf War, the period starts August 2nd, 1990, and there has not been a date set for the end of the Gulf War, so for all intents and purposes, it's still going on right now.
Okay, and so and it doesn't require that the veteran have served for that continual period of time, but only for a 90-day term. Is that correct?
That's right. They didn't actually have to do battle, but if they were in active service during those periods I just laid out, they meet that requirement.
But only for 90 days would be the requirement.
That's right.
Okay. Now, they also must have gotten better than a dishonorable discharge to be a candidate. Now, what does that mean?
They must not have a dishonorable discharge, so they must be honorably discharged or discharged for some reason that was not dishonorable, for an injury or medical condition. As long as they weren't dishonorably discharged, then they meet that criteria.
Okay. Now, we go on to the next requirement, and that concerns itself with their health. Is that right?
That's right. There's a medical requirement that the veteran, or in the case of a deceased veteran, their surviving spouse must have problems what is called activities of daily living, or ADLs. And those activities of daily living are bathing, toileting, transferring, grooming, things like that are activities of daily life that they need assistance in completing.
Generally, they would need the care of a licensed vocational nurse. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. Now, if they have had a history of falling, that also would be a factor, would it not?
Yes, a history of falls. If they needed a protective living environment because they are having falls or having some kind of problems, then that also would qualify for this medical requirement that the VA has set.
And so if they don't meet the medical requirement, then they probably are not going to get A&A.
That's right. If they're healthy or don't have these ADL troubles, then that's not going to meet that requirement.
Or if they were like my Aunt Donna, who was in her 80s and delivering Meals on Wheels to the old people, probably not going to be eligible.
That's right.
Okay. Now let's talk about the financial aspects of someone wanting to get A&A.
There is an income and an asset limit for A&A, and we'll start with income. The VA looks at the income of either the veteran, or if it's a single veteran, or the veteran and their spouse, or in the case of a veteran that's passed away, a surviving spouse of that veteran, and they look at the monthly income of that person or couple, and they also look at the medical expenses that they have each month, whether that's assisted living facility costs, whether that's a nurse service that has come into the home, or if it's a family caregiver that they're paying every month, they take into account all of those medical expenses and look at the monthly income of the person.
And we call those expenses, in the VA jargon, unreimbursed medical expenses. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And so someone could be in an assisted living facility, and if they meet the requirements health-wise, they might be able to have that monthly expense at the assisted living facility considered to be this unreimbursed medical expense. And so it could result in the veteran and his spouse receiving as much as how much per month?
So if the expenses that we've talked about, whatever they are above these limits, then that they can receive it. So if the medical expenses of a single veteran are above $1,911, then they are eligible for that amount. For a married couple, if their monthly income is less than the medical expenses, again, whether that's an ALF or home care, $2,266, then they are eligible for that amount, again, tax-free.
So if someone had, for example, a married couple and they were in an assisted living facility and their cost was, say, $3,500 and their monthly income was, I'll say, $3,000 a month, then they would actually have a negative, what we call a negative income for VA purposes. Is that right?
That's right.
And so they would be eligible for the maximum. You said it was $2,266?
$2,266.
Okay, so they would come out with quite a bit of extra money, wouldn't they?
That's right.
And that money's tax-free, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so that same concept would apply to the surviving spouse of a deceased veteran. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Right.
but now the amount she would be eligible for, the maximum, would be $1,200 and something?
Yeah, it's $1,230 for a surviving spouse if the veteran has passed away.
Okay, and she would also have to meet the tests of needing medical care. Is that right?
Right. She would also have to have those problems with ADLs that we talked about.
Right. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about assets. The rules have changed as of this year. So let's talk about what kind of assets the veteran can have and still potentially be eligible for A&A.
So regardless of whether you're a veteran or surviving spouse, the VA looks at your assets, and some aren't countable, part of your countable assets. So you can have a house up to any value and the 2 acres that are attached. So a house plus 2 acres you can have and still be eligible.
Regardless of the value?
Regardless of the value.
Okay.
You can also have a vehicle regardless of the value. So you could have a nice vehicle, you're able to have that because any vehicle, regardless of value, you can have. The last thing is that you can have up to $129,000 in other assets, whether that's checking account, CDs, mutual funds. You could have a rent house. Any assets up to $129,000 you can keep as well.
Okay. What if someone thinks to himself, well, you know, I've got $200,000 and I meet the criteria as far as needing help with ADLs, but I've got too much, and so I'm going to transfer this to my kids and get below that $129,000 or the $129,000 or low. Will that work?
It won't work. Like you stated earlier, the newer rules have a transfer penalty and a look-back period of 3 years. So 3 years prior to you applying for this Veterans Aid and Attendance Program, they're going to look back the last 3 years and see if any transfers have been made. And if you have made transfers and you do have the idea that to transfer assets, you're going to have a transfer penalty, which is a period of ineligibility for the Aid and Attendance Program. So the look-back period is 3 years, so anything that's been transferred in the last 3 years is going to be a bad idea.
So if someone is wanting to look towards the future in terms of aid and attendance, maybe they've got a significant amount of assets and they want to get those out of their name and get down to that $129,000, What do you think about that?
Well, if they want to transfer assets out of their name, that's going to hinder them getting A&A in the future.
I understand in the future, but if we get past the penalty period, then we're okay.
Then you're either able to apply, and then if you're past it, then depending on what the amount is, then you can apply and you'll be eligible.
Oh, so if we get beyond the 3 years, we're okay.
Right.
Okay. And they might want to put those assets, they might want to transfer the assets to their kids or into an irrevocable trust, right?
That's right.
Okay. So, Dean, we practice law here in Wichita Falls. We're in the used to be called what's called the Southwest Building. It's where Merrill Lynch is located. It's on Kemp, 4245 Kemp, and we're on the 8th floor, Suite 800. And you and I are both accredited by the Veterans Administration. Is that correct?
That's right.
What does that mean?
So we are both accredited from the VA, which means we have taken additional education and other courses to familiarize ourselves with Veterans Aid and Attendance and VA pension in general. But we have both gone through and educated ourselves extra to become accredited. We've also applied and gotten that certificate from the VA.
Are there any other lawyers that you know of in the North Texas area that are accredited like we are?
To my knowledge, we're the only two.
Okay. Our phone number, we're at 940-696-5015. Is that right?
That's right.
And if we can be of assistance to the viewer of this YouTube, we would be delighted to visit with them and try to see if we can help. And generally we do this initially by a telephone conference so that we're able to minimize the amount of time that the client has to spend so that if we're able to help, we want to help, but we don't want to take time of theirs if we cannot help them. Is that right?
That's right. It's a free telephone conference to call and see if we can help you. We'll talk about your situation and see if you'll be eligible for these potential benefits.
Okay.
And also we have a website and a Facebook page, so if you want to check us out on there, cdancampbell.com, and Facebook, we're Law Offices of C. Dan Campbell, and so check those out if you want to get more information.